Hey, I'm Dr. Dooley. I'm a board certified psychiatrist, and today I'm going to be reacting to follow up of a news story that came out of Metro Atlanta, in which a gentleman with a mental illness died in one of the local jails in very deplorable conditions. Initially, the family basically was saying he died based on the deplorable conditions he was found in, and this story is an update to that. So I'm gonna jump right in. I'm gonna add some commentary as we go along, kind of as it relates to forensic psychiatry, and some of the circumstances and how it played a role in this case. But we're going to jump right in and kind of hear some of the updates about this
Now, in
case.
the controversial death of an inmate at the Fulton County Jail, an independent autopsy found LaShawn Thompson died of fatal cardiac arrhythmia after months of neglect while incarcerated. Fox 5's Deidre Dukes is live at
And if you saw like just then what the cell looked like, you see what I mean when I say like deplorable conditions. If you even just glanced at what that cell looked like.
the Fulton County Jail with more. And Deidre, Thompson's family and their attorneys insist jail staff should face criminal charges.
Attorneys for Thompson's family calling the Fulton County Jail a torture chamber. They say autopsy findings prove that jail staffers who were supposed to be caring for Thompson are guilty of willful neglect, and they do want them criminally charged.
We now know what caused LaShawn Thompson to die, and it was criminal negligence.
Attorneys for LaShawn Thompson family say the independent autopsy confirmed that he was, in their words, neglected to death.
It confirms that this is...
Okay, so interesting. So it sounds like they're saying the cause of death was an arrhythmia, and then they're saying that the cause of death was negligence. So it sounds like, again, they got an independent autopsy, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure if they're holding the findings. It looks like they're maybe holding the findings here.
One of the most deplorable in custody deaths in the history of America.
The 35-year-old was schizophrenic and was being held in the jail's psychiatric wing. He died in September of 2022, 3 months after being arrested on a misdemeanor battery charge in Atlanta. Thompson's body was discovered in a filthy jail cell covered in bed bugs and other insects.
He was thrown in.
Now, I will say, just looking at that, I can agree that the conditions were deplorable. I can't even fathom that he was living in that people were walking by. They say he was in the mental health wing, so I'm assuming there was medical personnel there also, and that he was found and that he was left
that cell in the mental health ward and left there to die.
The Fulton County Medical Examiner's office listed Thompson's cause of death as undetermined, but Dr. Randy Mitchell, head of forensic pathology at Howard University, found Thompson died of complications due to severe neglect, which led to fatal cardiac arrhythmia.
The major contributing cause, untreated decompensated schizophrenia, dehydration, malnutrition, severe body insect infestation, and the manner of death is homicide.
Attorneys say Thompson was unable to care for himself due to his diminished mental state and allege he went without food, liquids, and medication. Thompson's family is struggling to come to grips with the horrific circumstances surrounding his death.
It's enough that the bed bugs and lice sat there and ate my brother to death, but the neglect hurts me the most. That in 2023, that we'll see people leave people, let them torture, let them rot in the cell. That hurts me the most.
I think, just one other comment I would say here is that, often people who have, serious mental illnesses like schizophrenia, when they're arrested, they often get arrested on rather minor charges. It sounds like that's, he was arrested on misdemeanor charges. But if I heard correctly, he had been in the jail for like a few months. I'll wrap this up here and see if the wrap up had anything of importance to say. We'll move on.
And the family and attorneys also today calling for the first time for a meeting with Governor Kemp. They do say that they'd like to talk to the governor.
if you from Georgia, you know anything about Governor Kemp, that meeting is not likely to happen.
About more that can possibly be done when it comes to mental illness and funding here in the state of Georgia. They say mental illness should not be criminalized. That's the latest here at the Fulton County Jail.
Okay, so that's kind of the follow-up. So again, it sounds like the family got a independent autopsy performed, and they're basically saying the manner of death was ruled to be a homicide. I'm assuming due to the neglect. And I think just a couple of things I would add when it comes to forensic psychiatry. So forensic psychiatry is the branch of psychiatry that deals with like the intersection of psychiatry and the law. And forensic psychiatry can involve criminal and then like civil cases. And so when we think of criminal cases, that's what we most often think of, like, people who get arrested for a crime and then they go to court and, are they competent to stand trial, not guilty by reason of insanity, those types of things. And then civil cases, I think we hear about less often, but civil forensic psychiatry kind of involves things related to cases, maybe, let's say workman's comp injury. If people have like maybe they have an injury at work and there's psychological distress, the people who will be assessing that and to see if they need damages for that, racial discrimination, like all kinds of discrimination. And if there's psychological distress, if people are owed like damages for those things, maybe like ADA related cases, cases where there's like civil commitments where people are committed to mental health treatment. Maybe if people are trying to determine if people need a conservator or a guardian. Maybe if people are trying to make a will and it's not clear whether or not they have like the mental capacity to do that, then like that would be like a civil forensic issue. So not everyone who is working in jails or prisons have the additional training. So, just pretty much you don't have to have additional forensic psychiatry training to do that type of work, to work in jails or prisons. When I was in training, basically forensics was like just a month. And then of course, if you go on to do a fellowship, it's an additional whole year of that type of training. So it's not necessary to work in jails or prisons, but you can specialize to do that. And I think to me, just like the take home is that when a lot of state hospitals closed, the majority of those closed, and people with mental health were put back out in communities, really the largest facilities that house individuals with mental illness, they are jails and prisons. And jails and prisons are just not equipped to care for people who have mental illnesses. Often the staff, they aren't trained. They don't have sometimes access to all of the medications that people would need. I'm just going to say, when I did my rotation in forensics, I was in Indianapolis and I was at the Marion County Jail. And, just kind of seeing how the process worked and how the prisoners got access to treatment. And I think they had a fairly good model there, that people were able to, that they even had a psychiatrist that was there actually providing treatment. But, some hospitals, things will happen like, some jails and prisons, like, let's say if they don't have enough staff, like nursing staff, well, let's say if they give out night medicines, let's say night medicines are supposed to be given at 9 p.m. Well, if they don't have a night nurse, and you want to take your night medicine, you gonna have to take that like 5 p.m. before the nurse who's there has to leave. So, staffing issues and stuff like that would happen where, people are taking like their night medicine very early. So, their sleep may be off or just the dosing times would be off. But those are just things that typically, like in a hospital environment, people are not going to give the medication like that early, like something like that I would, see or hear about being done in like jails and prisons. But really this case, I think, just brings home how people with mental health and mental health issues are treated and mistreated. Like I said, I can't imagine walking by. I just can't imagine what circumstances happened that this individual ended up in a cell that looked like that, and that he had lice and bed bugs on his body, like an infestation, and that nothing was done. Well, I'm going to assume, right, that if an intervention was done to help him, it wasn't something that was significant enough to have any noticeable difference based on, the assessments that we heard about. And just, I mean, look at it, look at what we saw there. You can see it with your own eyes and make your own determination. It's just, I mean, if there are circumstances that led to that, it's just hard for me to imagine what it was to leave an individual in something like that. So, my condolences to the family, and, I really hope that they can get some kind of justice. I'm, really not confident in that, just based on, I'm in Georgia, understanding how the laws work here, understanding how, in a lot of ways, antiquated, like, mental health system and treatment is here. I don't have a lot of faith that that will happen, but, that would be my hope for the family, that they would get some kind of justice, and hopefully some kind of peace, that their souls could have some kind of peace now that their family member has passed away. Thank you for coming to hear this video. If you like what you heard here today, please press the like button, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.